talking with Art Gonzalez and Misa Garcia. Automation is going to eliminate like truck drivers, right? And the trucking industry is going to be changed because, you know, there are going to be self-driving trucks, self-driving vehicles, and things like that. But I was reading an article about the economies and the communities that are built around truck driving. And so while the immediate thought is, yes, truck driving will be impacted, right, by self-driving vehicles, and truck drivers themselves will be impacted, but what about the communities that are built around them? Like, let's say routes that rely on truck drivers to stop by and, sleep at the motels and eat at their restaurants, gas stations and things.
You're talking about automation, and it's going to eliminate the need for someone to be behind the wheel. Do you think that means that there's not going to be the need of a person?
That's exactly what the question was.
To be, yeah. So
because Art was asking, like, well, what about pilots, right?
Right.
Pilots
already don't have to literally.
Yeah,
control.
They do some piloting, and then the autopilot takes over.
It's like they're just overseeing.
They're more overseeing and kind of being there in case of an emergency situation.
That I think will be first, right? Like first, there's going to be the truck that drives itself, but the driver is still going to be, I think, a part of that whole transaction.
Yeah. So is it more of a? Initially, it's more of a make customers feel comfortable thing. Right. As opposed to the fact that there really needs to be someone there.
Right.
Okay.
So first that's going to happen.
So it's a consumer confidence issue.
Because I did read one different article was talking about pilots too. Like pilots, they're already like at a stage where they don't need, they're going to try to have or eliminate the pilots completely.
Right.
And
so
that's what it kind of
with aviation, they're already there. They've already done that phase.
Yeah.
Right.
Now they can move on to the next phase, and it's like, okay, we don't actually need someone to sit there anymore.
Although I think it'll accelerate more with cars though, because
that's already
it's already been like over I don't know how many years now. This is just like, okay, well, it works with pilot or planes that appear to be more dangerous if something happens compared to a car that once you get it right, once you
But there's a lot more cars, and there's a lot more variables when with planes, right? I mean, obviously yes, like there's a lot of people that will be affected if one plane crashes, but like there's like more opportunities for cars to have more.
Yeah, I think that's where like the whole IoT, like the Internet of Things, I think that's where those companies are like thinking, okay, that's true, but if the cars are communicating with each other the whole time, then they can share that information and keep distances and all this stuff.
Right. The other argument is that, well, technology can be more accurate than a human, person that's driving that's, might be sleepy, might be tired, might be distracted with texting or whatever, since we all kind of do that. Oh, you don't? Okay. Since the rest of us do it?
Okay.
So I think there's some statistics already showing that like an automated car, it's already a lot safer than a person because I mean we hear crashes all the time and we see that we've been probably in several of them. I have, so of course, I think it's just that psychological fear that people have initially that there's no one behind the wheel, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I think that's like probably the biggest obstacle, and not necessarily the technology or the actual reality that a car is being driven.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I guess when you look at it in the context of what we're already seeing and the number of accidents and unfortunate automobile-related deaths, it's a huge number. And I guess maybe when we think about self-driving cars and the dangers that may pose, when we look at it without considering the current context of all the deaths that happen because of human error, and in fact, stupid things that we do on the road, that it may be much, much safer.
So what do you guys think that means? Like automation meaning like, okay, that's just the first thing that we can see that like drivers can be replaced very easily, and it's actually more efficient to do it that way. Yeah. Okay, let's say, what does that mean?
I love that question because it's almost like you're saying, what does the automation even, like, what does that really mean? Like, are we talking about technical automation? Like, is it the fact that it could let's say, for sake of illustration, that it could move the steering wheel and increase the velocity or decrease the velocity? Like, is that what automation is? Or are we talking about like decision-making capabilities, another human aspect of it, you know? And I think that's where people, when they use the word automation, same thing with virtual reality, they use the same thing. Same thing with even things like virtual currencies. We use the term very loosely, but I think that's a good question. What does that even mean? You know, automation, what is that referring to specifically?
What do we want to talk about? How is it going to affect people?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Lives?
That's what I mean.
How is it going to affect the industries? You know, which part do you want to talk about?
That's what I mean. Which parts are involved in automation, so that we could speak about the different parts of it. Because I think most people, they immediately think of like a self-driving car. Okay, it drives itself. There's a turn, it turns. Mm-hmm. And that's an important part of automation. But I think some people think that that's the extent of automation, when I think things like decision-making capabilities, judgment, you know, is it possible that automation in some cases is not good because you need human empathy at that point, right? These are things that I think should be considered.
I think they are being considered.
Maybe.
And they will be, and they will be even further when we get closer to having to make those choices, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, but right now it's all speculation because that's all we can really do.
Yeah.
And it's like we can speculate all we want about the thing, but it's like unless we are the ones that are involved in those projects, then we are going to be the ones that make the choices on how these things get programmed and what algorithms get put into them. And otherwise, it's going to be up to the people that are paying for those projects to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So.
And that's going to be the corporations that have money that want to push this agenda forward. So, like, yeah, that's going to be considered. It is being considered.
So, something I guess that we can talk about more from an opinion perspective. What do you guys think automation will be like? Make some big changes. We already talked about like the trucking industry, right, and aviation, things like that. But I mean, have you guys thought about any other aspects of life that it could either make an impact or is starting to, or hey, maybe it should, you know, it's not being considered yet, but maybe it should be considered.
I always stay away from anything that it should. You know that, because I'm like, it should based on what objective, like what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
And for who, you know, and why are we going to push a thing on anyone?
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's got their free will.
Yeah, because at some time someone said trucking should be automated, right?
Right.
So in that context, like, you know, is there something like that should be, you know?
Yeah, I don't believe anything should or shouldn't. Like, it is what it is. If that company decides to transfer over into automation, by all means, I'm like anxious to see what happens and how that progresses, right? Yeah. But when you talk about like whether it should, like for who, like should I do that? That's the only thing I have over like any, you know.
Yeah, I guess
opinion over. But
I guess I'm referring to like is it going to increase efficiency? Is it going to make what do you call it?
Wasn't that the point of all of it to make like create efficiencies in all those different aspects, whether it's in our regular lives or whether it's a corporation trying to save money by doing that, investing in that to eventually long-term save on labor costs?
Yeah.
I mean, all of it, I think it's you know, for that purpose, or a lot of it is for that purpose. And obviously the corporations that have the money, they're going to, you know, try to do it. You know? Because why not? I mean, if it's going to save you long term, why wouldn't you, you know, like try to do it? But again, from that perspective, it makes sense for corporations that are trying to do that. Yeah. To, you know, continue looking, you know, how you can make things more efficient. I think at a consumer level, that'll also affect us to some extent in positive ways and in negative ways, because obviously, you know, once your job doesn't require you anymore because someone, you know, a machine's taking over, then obviously it's going to affect you. On a regular, you know, day at home, you have efficient ways to do things. Obviously that benefits you in that aspect, you know, but obviously, you know, there's different ramifications for all the different aspects. So I think it's good in a way, but then it's also going to affect us in a bigger socio-economic aspect negatively, because it's definitely going to create, less need for people to do a certain thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Like there's gonna be less of a need for people to do certain tasks, not just less of a need for people. Like I don't know that's like when you just say it as less of a need for people, then it's like people are like whoa, there's less of a need for me. Well, to do those tasks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think people get caught up in the first part of it, and they're just like, oh my God, they're not gonna need me anymore.
Yeah.
And then they want to grab onto that task. Like if that makes up who they are, right?
Yeah.
People become so attached to their job, and it's like
that's part of their identity, right? I mean, like
I don't think so.
But I think
people
do.
A lot of people. No, yeah, of course.
Yes.
That's what I mean. Like people, if you're a farmer or whatever, I'm a farmer. My family has been, farmers for I don't know how many generations. So it's like, something that identifies a lot of people, especially if they kind of fell in that, career.
Yeah.
For from previous generations, or even now, like I go to school because I want to become a doctor, or I want to become this. I want to become. That's the key.
Yeah, and I mean it's definitely I think one of the things that we can identify ourselves as, right? Like the thing that we do, like. But I think it's just one of the things that identifies us, and it's like, but that doesn't have to be our whole identity. And I think definitely people are in that place where they I'm a driver. That's it. I'm a driver.
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to fill some kind of a gap that they have that's being filled in part by that profession,
what is that gap? And I think that gap is not understanding who they are.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's almost like a need of purpose or some kind of whatever recognition, or because some people that's the only place they get that sometimes.
Yeah.
If they want to feel like they're doing a good job, they only get that at work, and so they feel like they have to identify themselves with that because it gives them self-worth and all these things. But anyway, that's a whole nother.
Well, it's a whole other issue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like it's a whole other issue. But it's I think what we're talking about, because we are talking about like what happens when automation, takes over and there's no need for people to do those jobs anymore.
Good point.
Well, this is what we're talking about. People feel this thing.
So now we're talking about I think that goes down to the issue that I was trying to get to at the beginning, is are businesses, for example, looking for only efficiency? Because it seems like that makes sense for them, but are they thinking about those ramifications? Are they thinking about the fact that people's self-worth might be people's
do you think should they
personal
think about
identity?
Those things?
I think some companies are more prone to thinking about. I think companies that are more into social causes and things like that are the ones who think about those things.
But do you think
and others don't really?
So do you think
that
like a company should consider like, oh wait, but then those people are not going to have a job, so then let's not move forward in doing this thing?
Well, I think it should be something at least in the conversation.
Oh, and I think it is.
Yeah,
I think it will be for sure.
Whether they say, we have 50 employees or 100 employees or 1,000 employees who will feel less fulfilled, but we're going to save millions and millions of dollars. Well, they're going to go through.
But what about
that
this?
route.
What about not less fulfilled, right? But now they have the ability to do something meaningful with their lives.
Well, I think that's more of an issue.
With, that's just one way of saying it.
Yeah. I think that's something that, again, the person doing the job is going to have to decide whether
how they want to look at
whether they want to disconnect from their current identity, which is that job, and then say, be able to accept the grander vision of doing more with their life besides that. Yeah. And I think the company may be responsible in a way by eliminating that job to help them along that path. Some may feel that that's their.
Well, that would be nice, but realistically speaking, I don't think the corporations, for the most part, I'm not saying all of them, but that's not their main interest. Their main interest is to make profits, increase their profits. So if it's going to come at a cost where you have to lay all these people off because now you automated, I don't think. I mean, they probably feel bad, but that's not going to stop them from continuing that endeavor. So,
yeah.
I mean, that would be nice. That would be ideal. They're thinking about their employees and they're thinking about the world as a whole. And
okay, so seeing that that's a possibility, right? That automation, because companies looking to be more efficient, make more profit, and it's going to make certain things easier for the lives of some people, right? Might create this like, how could you say it's this, this big problem where people might disconnect from a current identity and now have to branch off into something else that they may not be used to or may not want to, right? Maybe an identity crisis is what I was looking for to say.
Yeah.
Is that going to open up the floodgates to people who are going to come in to kind of fill that gap? You know, maybe psychiatrists or consultants or whatever.
Absolutely.
That's kind of interesting because I hadn't thought about that.
And you see it as a problem, but or you said it. You worded it as. Is that going to cause this problem, or is that going to cause this?
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity
for people to now be like, "Hey, what am I doing with my life? Look, now I'm going to be doing something."
All these psychologists that got degrees in psychology now can apply them.
Yes, particularly, that's one thing that is it opening that door? It seems like it is opening that door,
absolutely.
And it's something that's going to happen as automation increases. Mm-hmm. It's going to there's going to be a need for people like that. It seems,
absolutely.
You know, so. Psychology will be the next thing to
I mean, it's one of the things.
Go after.
I think a bunch of other amazing things are going to happen with this because there's going to be a bunch of people that are like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Some of them are going to not want to move forward and they're going to grab on even stronger and be like, no, this is what I was. I was like a driver. That's all I know how to do in my life. And, you know, I feel bad for people that don't want to let go of those things, right? Like that they identify with those positions, but it's like, there's an opportunity for you. And some people decide to not take it as an opportunity and see it only as a problem. And other people will see it as an opportunity and move on and be like, wow, I'm so much more fulfilled with this new thing that I identify with now, you know?
Yeah.
So I think both things will happen.
Okay, so I have a question that's particularly in your field. Because that happens with people who were in film. And like, for example, there's people who still want to shoot film, right? They want to shoot film because there's a certain quality in film that they feel has been lost, right? They feel that there's something there that they don't want to lose. Do you think there's something analogous to?
Absolutely. Same thing.
With automation?
End of an era. Same thing. It'll be an end of an era.
Remember
when people used to drive their own cars, like, and that's. I don't think we're too far away from thinking that way. You know? Remember when they used to shoot in film and not digital, and like we would not be able to afford.
So
this, you know, like shooting 4 cameras.
So my question is this. My question is, if you ask someone who just shoots in film, and they'll say the reason why I stick with film is because I didn't want this particular thing to be lost. I wanted this feel to be preserved. Right. What would that be for automation? Like, why would someone still want to drive for themselves?
Some guy's still driving.
You know, is it because they want to brag that they can drive a stick shift, or is it?
Some people just like cars. That's their thing. You know, just like
okay.
You know,
so that's a good one.
It's something they're passionate about, and I can see it. You know, but I mean, I personally don't care. I hate to drive. I'd have a chauffeur if I can afford it, but you know, there are those people that like to work on the cars even if there's nothing wrong. They just like to, you know, have their hands on engine and, you know, mess around. And in some people that just like to drive because it kind of like relieves them from stress or whatever it is, you know. I don't get why, but
no, I get why, because I'm like, see, I have both sides. There's times when I don't want to drive, but at the same time, I like getting my hands dirty. I used to help my brother take out transmissions and motors and things, and I was able to do some of that on my own. And I like cars. I like to feel, you know, the vibrations of the vehicle. I like to feel when it's shifting, when it's moving from one thing to another. You know,
it's an amazing invention that like gets you that made the world smaller. You know, because you can get to places way faster than you could. I mean, it's an amazing thing. You know.
Yeah, but it doesn't make me want to not welcome automation for driving.
No,
like it just,
not.
but there is a part of me that would hate to lose that aspect.
See, that's maybe because you're a hater.
Maybe
I don't hate. Why are you hating for? You know?
You know, and there's, but I think that's funny that there are certain aspects, because like I said, there is a maybe negative part to saying, no, I don't want to change. I want to stick to what I do, and you know, and not grab onto this new innovation.
But I think that's what most people don't like change. Though. I mean, like. they don't welcome it. It makes them feel uncomfortable, so they prefer to stay with, you know, status quo. I mean, obviously,
I'm going to disagree with you and say that I don't think that's most people. Maybe a lot of people. I don't know that that's everyone.
Yeah. Well, but I think the majority. I mean, at different levels, I'm sure. Like there's a huge level, you know, a huge change. They're completely off guard, and it catches them off guard, and you know, like
it's a whole spectrum. So
yeah,
like,
so yeah,
dramatic changes. Yeah, maybe the majority of people would not enjoy, right? But then there's small, subtle changes that people do actually like.
So where does this fit into? Does this fit into?
I think there's going to be a big change because watch, like one of the examples would be like Uber. You know, they started growing all over the world, and you start seeing all these taxi drivers protesting because they're completely against that new way of thinking. You know, this sharing economy. They're completely against it. You know, I think with Airbnb, I think they're doing something similar. Certain, like, I don't know if it was hotels or who it was, but, you know, they were against it too because, like, oh, it's taking out my business. So it's not necessarily that maybe they're against technology moving forward. It's just that it affects them at that moment negatively. So they resist and they try to find a way to, you know, fight it.
Yeah,
you know?
so that's not two opinions. There are those who just don't like to change because they just like to stick to their old way of doing things. And there are those who don't want to accept this change because, no, this takes something away from me. It's just a completely selfish reason, you know, because technology can be, you know, good for people and could help everyone move forward, or it could be, or you could look at it from the other way and say, no, I'm going to lose my share of the pie. So I'm going to resist it because of that reason, you know? And I think that with Uber, that's a lot of the taxis. Like, why are the taxis protesting? It's because they stuck to a model that is old-fashioned, that had its time. You know, it was around in the way it was because that was the only option, and someone came up with a better option. Right? They built a better mousetrap, and now they're upset because other people want to go with the better option and they don't want to go and adjust. So it seems like it's a complete selfish reason. It's not. It's in the best. It seems like it's in the best interest for most of the people to go in that direction, but they resist it because it's not in their best interest, which is, I think, is a silly reason for, you know, it's understandable,
but it's I think
it's short-sighted.
I think it reflects a lot of, you know, how
it's a self-centered reason.
Well, look, no, you touched on it, and it's like it's a model, like for the taxis, for example, right? It's a model that's been around for a real long time, and they're doing this, so they're going to complain about the thing that changes or gets rid of this system, right? Because I think eventually it will, especially with these new things coming out. This will just be completely wiped out, right? Yeah. And of course they're going to complain. Like, driving our own cars is even bigger than that. Yeah. Like, you know, it's been around for 100 years, and now, like, shifting that over into a new thing, people are going to, a lot of people are not going to like it, and they're going to fight it. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen, or it's not going to progress, and it's not going to, like, take over eventually.
Did you ever hear of the old complaints that people used to give when the car was coming around? And it was like, you know, oh, they're going to scare all the horses. You can't have all these cars out here. You can't, look at all the smoke that's coming out of them. This will never catch on. This is, and one of the reasons was, it wasn't so much because it wasn't practical. It was because I sell horses and buggies, or I provide that service, and so I don't want these new things to come, which I can obviously see doesn't need what I have, you know, and so that's why I'm resisting it. But yeah, it seems like it happens over and over in different industries. And automation is just one specific aspect where it's happening in the transportation industry. I don't know. I think it's going to affect other industries.
I think it's going to be a gradual change for sure, though, because again, like I said, this has been around for 100 years, and it's been, you know, it's taken a long time to get to where we're at, and I think it's definitely going to change, but I think it's going to take a while to kind of shift into the new thing. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to have a car and drive it. You know what I mean? Like, you can drive it, and it's not like just because there's electric cars that will drive themselves, now everyone has to stop driving forever.
Okay.
You know,
like, here's a counter argument. What if, let's say, year one, right? Year one, there's a certain amount of self-driving vehicles, and then they look at the amount of accidents, auto-related deaths in self-driving vehicles, which is obviously going to be a small sample size, but then they're able to extrapolate it compared to the normal size of drivers, and they find out that it's a drastic difference You know,
like,
oh my goodness, it's 1,000 times more dangerous to just drive by yourself. You know, and they say, you know what, we're just going to allow people to drive themselves. Do you think that'll ever be the case?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It'll get to that. I mean, I don't think it'll be right away. I don't think it'll be year one. That's just a crazy exaggeration of like, it is year one.
Just to write
there's already driving cars.
Yeah.
So it is year one, and that's not happening.
Yeah.
So like, it's going to take some time. Like
nothing
happens like that, you know?
Yeah. Of course. Well, just to write legislation for that's going to take a year.
But they will. But here's the thing. There's a lot of people with a lot of money that are in control that will not want that to happen. So there's people on both arguments of this, even at the top, you know, that are very powerful. So like, they're not just going to be like, okay, I guess we lost our oil industry and we're not going to keep, you know, doing things that way. They're not just going to do that.
That's a whole other topic is what's going to happen once it gets to, you know, self-driving plus electric, you know, which is what Tesla's doing. Because Daimler's doing their self-driving semi-truck, but it's, I think it's still...
I think even those big car companies already, like, they realize that they're trying to adapt or catch up to the whole electric part too, and they will eventually because, you know, that's what they do.
Yeah, I can't imagine any of them not having a plan for that.
They already announced, like, all of the major car manufacturers already announced their electric car coming.
Yeah.
And they almost kind of jumped the gun and were like, yeah, we're doing it too. We're like, and, you know, and it's like, okay, like, obviously they have to, like, they can't. They're not going to just stay behind. And,
Let's wrap this up. Thanks for sharing your opinions, guys. See you guys later.
That's that one.